Hey everybody, Chicago Goonie here, bringing you another Arsenal talk. In this Arsenal talk, I'll be covering some Arsenal news as far as injuries, players coming back from injury, of course, and then some transfer news at the end here. Of course, on the eve of playing the Orcs, the rugby team, better known as Stoke City, on Sunday. Um, Getting into the Arsenal news, first and foremost, of course, the key players that are coming back for this game. Of course, two players from injury, which being Mesut Ozil and Aaron Ramsey. And of course, Giroud is off of his red card suspension from his headbutt from the QPR game. Um, it's gonna be huge having those guys back. Having Mesut Ozil and Aaron Ramsey most likely will not be starting the game, but at the same time, just having him on the bench is going to be huge, especially with Mesut Ozil. I mean, of course, the talk all around Twitter and of course through Arsenal fans is we're finally going to see what we've been waiting for. Not only from last season, but this season as well. Especially right when the transfer of Alexis Sanchez went through. That we've been just dying to see Walcott on the wing, Sanchez on the other wing, Mesut Ozil, and of course Aaron Ramsey bossing the midfield and just dealing those guys the ball. Whether it be Danny Welbeck up front or Olivier Giroud, it doesn't really matter to me. I'd rather see Welbeck up there just because of the pace. The pace will just be lethal. I mean, it's just going to be a matchup nightmare for any Premier League team. It doesn't matter if it's Chelsea, Man City, Manchester United, Liverpool. Name any of the top or historical any of the top clubs in the Barclays Premier League currently. It's just going to be a matchup nightmare. It doesn't matter how organized you are, how good you think you are defensively. It's just going to be a matchup nightmare. You kind of saw it in the last game in the FA Cup tie when Theo Walcott started for against Hull City. You could see what we've been missing, what we've been lacking, especially with Theo Walcott, because he can just get behind defenses so easily with his pace. Of course, Alexis Sanchez can do that a lot too, but I think he's like more of a Theo's more of a direct runner. He does do the diagonal runs as well, but he's more of a direct runner where he can really just blaze past. He's so smart when he does that too, because sometimes you just don't know when he's gonna just turn on the jets. Especially with Theo. Sometimes he'll start off as like a small jog. I think part of that is due to the fact that he's trying to let the whether it's like Sandy or whoever the CM is or whoever's on the ball currently, to kind of give them a heads up saying I'm running in behind, so deal me the ball as close as possible or on point as possible. And you saw that plenty against Hull City. We've been just missing that tremendously over the last year with Theo being out. But with Mesut Ozil coming back, hopefully, we're obviously it's set in stone now finally that we're continuing on with the 4-2-3-1, and that's our strongest formation. And it's gonna be nasty. It's gonna be so much fun to watch. I think it sounds like through his Twitter page, through his Facebook, it seems like Mesut Ozil is re-energized. I think this time off has been, it hasn't been a blessing for us, obviously, because we miss his quality. We miss his tricks on the pitch. We miss that final ball. We miss his passing ability. But at the same time, you see all the players that have come back from the World Cup and have a kind of like teams that went through, maybe to the Final Four, to the final, maybe even the final eight teams. You see a lot of those players struggling, trying to get back into form, trying to re-energize themselves. So in some ways, it's almost like a blessing that he was able to take this time off. Yes, he did a lot of rehab, obviously, with his knee, but at the same time, it sounds like through his Twitter and through his Facebook that he's re-energized, like he's ready to go. He wants to play, and that's the Mesut Ozil that we need to see, that we want to see, and it seems like he's excited to come back. Obviously, with that type of front line, with those type of players that he was even lacking from last season, that he's ready to go, that he's excited. Even with the Ox too, which is very versatile, which he can play as a CM or the wing. I think the wing is obviously his best position, but he's going to have so much pace. He's going to have talking about Mesut Ozil, even Aaron Ramsey too. They're going to have so much pace up front, which Mesut Ozil is so used to from his Real Madrid days. That he has, for his Real Madrid days with Benzema and CR7. Those guys have a lot of pace and to deal that final ball to those type of guys. He's going to have that again. He's going to have those attackers to deal the ball to, especially with the form of Alexis Sanchez. I mean, you saw it in the Galatasaray game when they played at the Emirates, of how dangerous it can be. Again, that was one of Mesut Ozil's best games. The other great game he had when him and Danny Welbeck played so well together was against the Aston Villa game at Aston Villa, and you kind of saw glimpses of what could be with Mesut Ozil at the number 10, and what he can do with those type of guys, with those kind of pacey guys, with those type of guys who have the skill and the pace, and with Danny Welbeck the power as well to really outmuscle and just make those runs so that Mesut Ozil can pick those guys out left and right. And it's just going to be so much fun to watch. I mean, I think all of us have been waiting and just waiting and waiting and waiting for this to happen. And it might not happen in the Stoke City game because, again, we're playing a rugby team. We're not playing a football team. We're playing a rugby team, and you know how they play. Sometimes Stoke City does play differently away from home. Of course, Alexis Sanchez found out how dirty they are, especially Charlie Adams. The way he put him in a chokehold at the Stoke City game a few weeks ago. He found out real quick of how dirty they are and how dirty they can be and how dirty they can play. And maybe this isn't the best game to bring Mesut Ozil back and play him for 10 or 15 minutes, but at the same time, we got to get him on a pitch, at some point, whether it's this game or the next game. But the next game is Manchester City, at Manchester City. So it might be vital to get him on the pitch for 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. Same with Aaron Ramsey. There might be a possibility that Aaron Ramsey might come back and start on top of that, just because of the fact that, again, it was like a hamstring injury. Of course, what was it, last year when they played, was it Anderlecht? I believe it was Anderlecht that they brought him back right away. They started him. He played basically almost like the entire game, I think, too, against Anderlecht in the Champions League, and he was coming off a hamstring injury again in that game, and they threw him right back out there. So maybe he might see that CM spot, but again, we're playing Stoke City, very physical team. Who knows what the lineup might be, but I'm pretty sure that Mesut Ozil will be starting on the bench. I can't see Arsene Wenger just throwing him out to the wolves right away because of the form of Santi currently. I know a lot of fans have been saying you just can't bench Santi right now the way he's playing, but you can't bench him when it's a guy like Mesut Ozil. That's the difference between a world-class player and I guess you could almost classify Santi as a world-class player, or as close as to a world-class player without being world-class. Basically in that 12 and 13 season, maybe not so much last season and the beginning of this season, but over the last about month and a half, he's been playing lights out. But again, it's Mesut Ozil. It's one of the best number 10s in the world. But again, you could either, you could switch Santi to the CM spot, but Santi's not exactly the ideal box-to-box CM like Aaron Ramsey is, or a Jack Wilshere even. But that's a possibility. But again, if Santi, obviously he's going to start against Stoke City, and he's going to want to prove that he should be starting, and that's great. That's great to have that competition between Santi and Mesut Ozil. It's great to see to have that competition, especially with Theo Walcott coming back. You're going to have competition between Theo, the Ox. You're never going to have competition against Walcott Sanchez. He should be out there every single fucking game that he can actually play. And of course, again, Danny Welbeck, because he's versatile, that he can play the striker and winger position. Now with Lucas Podolski out and gone to Inter, there's going to be competition even there. And guys need to notice that. The players need to notice that there's going to be competition everywhere. Ox is versatile as well. He can play the CM spot with Aaron Ramsey until Jack gets back. Obviously, that won't be until February or March. I guess is the time frame for Jack to come back finally. But again, it's great to see that we're going to have so much competition, at least in our front line. Of course, there's no competition in our back line, unfortunately. But it's great to see that those guys are coming back. We desperately need them. We desperately want to see, the front line that I want to see, so badly is Danny Welbeck up top, Ozil playing behind him, Alexis Sanchez and Walcott on the wings, Aaron Ramsey at that CM spot. You could put, it doesn't really matter of who the DM is actually currently, because I guess Arteta is coming back as well. But honestly, I would rather see Coquelin get another game or even two, because he kind of provides that little bit of physicality. He's a tryhard, like I said in one of my last videos. I think he's a tryhard, but that's something that we need. We need someone who's going to get in there and make that cracking tackle. But again, sometimes his judgment is a little bit out of whack sometimes. But I like to see him continue to get a game or two to see if he can fill in, at that DM spot, to see what he can actually do with a run of games. Is he the ideal person against Manchester City? Maybe, maybe not. But at the same time, he's a hell of a lot faster than Flamini, definitely Arteta. I mean, Arteta may be, him and Mertesacker. I don't know who would win in a race, to be honest with you, between those two. I mean, Arteta's that slow now, but with Coquelin, at least he can track back. He doesn't have those old legs like a Flamini or a Arteta. So this might be a game for Coquelin to really show himself, to say, hey, you know what? When Manchester City game comes up, I should be playing that game. So let's see, what he does in this game. But it seems like Flamini is coming back as well. Arteta will be back as well, and the starting 11 for the Stoke City game is going to be somewhat of a mystery. You don't know who's going to be playing up top between Danny Welbeck. I know he has a little bit of a bump, but it's going to be him or Giroud. And of course, you don't know who's going to be starting on the wings. You don't know if Theo's going to get another start or not. He should. If he started the Hull City game, he should start this game, obviously. They basically have had like a week and a half off to really breathe, to really get their legs back, to really rest. Of course, everybody coming back, so it should be a good game. It should be a game that we should win comfortably this time, instead of putting ourselves behind the 8 ball like we did when we played at Stoke City. But at the same time, going back to that Stoke City game, that second half, that's the type of heart and passion that we want to see from the players from that second half, because that's what they showed in that second half. But we need to see that in the full 90 minutes of the game. They need to win this game, and they need to put this game away early. I remember last season in when we played Stoke City that we had I think we scored off of 3 set pieces, I believe, if I remember correctly. But we put the game away early to the point that Stoke City pretty much just gave up after the first half. We need to start doing that again. We need to start doing it against everybody. Because this point on, I mean, it's almost, we need to almost win every single game. Next week when we go to Manchester City, at the very least, we need a draw. We need to win. Obviously, I would love 3 points, but at the same time, when we're getting our players back, they're getting their players back as well. I guess Aguero and Dzeko will be available for that game. I guess Aguero will be back this weekend supposedly. The only upturn to Manchester City is that Yaya Toure is gone. He's in the African Cup of Nations right now, and he'll be gone for the next month. The other thing, Manchester City's buying Wilfried Bony from Swansea City for £30 million, which is just a crazy amount of money. Yeah, he's been the leading goal scorer for the calendar year of 2014, but at the same time, £30 million for that guy that's just way too much money. But again, he does play in the Premier League, so prices are going to be inflated when you buy a player from a Premier League team. But I think the price for Wilfried Bony is, that's a lot of money for that guy who doesn't work exactly that hard. He's only interested, seems like, sometimes when he's in the 18-yard box. That's about the only time. He's almost like a younger version of Lucas Podolski, to be honest with you, to where he's very lazy at times. Where you can try to, he's a big boy, but at the same time you can kind of scare him. You can throw your shoulder into his chest, and plus he has a short fuse too. I think he has 1 or 2 red cards already this season. So. But that's just a crazy amount of money to spend on that guy. But again, that's something that, again, it might be a little bit of a jealousy factor, especially from me, that you're seeing a club like Manchester City. Yes, they have all the money in the world, but again, it's still FFP that you have to worry about. But at the same time, they identify their target, they buy their target, business done. We want to start seeing that from Arsenal. And to piggyback that into some transfer news, first and foremost, that Loic Perrin, center half, the French center half, I guess it's cooled down to the point to where Arsenal is not interested anymore. It said they made an inquiry to his agent. His agent said yes, he is very interested in joining Arsenal. They didn't contact the club whatsoever, but at the same time, a few days later, the information came out that Arsenal cooled on Perrin and they're not interested in him anymore. What does that actually mean? There's a couple different ways you can spin this. Is one, they are looking for a center half. They're actively looking for a center half. And Perrin, he wasn't going to cost any type of big money either. He was going to cost anywhere from £6 to £7 million. That's it. When you're looking at a club like Arsenal, and the money that we possessed, that's a couple game days right there that they would spend on the player, and that's it. But again, the happy news, I guess, the good news about that is that they're actually actively looking for a center half, which is good. And then the other good part of it is, while Perrin is pretty good, I know a lot of people said, well, he has never made the national team and he's never played for the national team. He can't even get into the side of the national team. But let's be honest, the French national team isn't exactly the especially over the last 4 or 5 years, they haven't been exactly the model nation to copy off of choosing players and leaving players at home. Choosing the wrong players sometimes. The whole debacle of the 2010 World Cup. Even the Euros, they have a little debacle too with the French national team. But a lot of the excuses that Arsenal fans were making is that he wasn't good enough. If he's not good enough for the national team, he's not good enough for Arsenal, which I would disagree with that. because the center half position is a tricky position. It's not exactly the end all be all, especially in this day and age, especially in the modern game. To where if you looked at the center half position 15 or 20 years ago, I mean there was a ton of world class type center halves around the world. Now there's a handful. There's maybe 10, maybe 12 center halves that you can probably call world class, and maybe it's not even that many, to be honest with you. And that's scary. That's scary. That it seems like that more youth players are going for, say they want the glory, they want to be a striker, they want to be a winner, they want to be a number 10. They don't think they can make any money off of being a center half, which is untrue. So it's kind of scary, looking at like the center half position and the world class talent that's out there right now, which is very lacking, of course, with the center half position. But again, the good news is that they're actively looking. The other good news that you could take from it is, do they already have someone lined up? If all of a sudden they were interested in a player, and all of a sudden they cooled from a player, and they told the agent point blank that we're not interested anymore, do they have someone already lined up? Do they have a agreement, at least a handshake agreement, with another club? It's very possible. The one player that was really in the news, especially when the transfer window really kicked off, was Winston Reid. He is a very athletic, very good center half, especially for the Premier League. I mean, if you look at the I guess you can say non-top 4 teams, you'd put us in there, Chelsea, Man City, Manchester United, possibly, Liverpool possibly in there. When you look at middle half clubs, anywhere from the range of, say, 7 to 12 or something, or 6 to 12, that's where you would put probably like a West Ham. And Winston Reid is probably out of those teams the best center half in the Premier League. You could probably even put him up there, even with some of the better teams like us. And I mean, honestly, I would put him in there before Mertesacker, the way Mertesacker's been playing. But yeah, I would definitely buy him. A lot of people are saying, well, he's on a free. Yeah, but if he transfers to another club, the other club is going to obviously offer him a new contract, and that contract might be 3 years, 4 years, and you're going to miss out on him. Because West Ham isn't stupid. West Ham is not going to just let a guy like Winston Reid walk for free, because they just can't afford it. They're not like us. They're not like a Chelsea, to where we can let people go out on a free, and we still have plenty of money to spend. At the end of the day, in the summer transfer window, in the January transfer window, West Ham just isn't that type of club. Do they have money? Sure, just like most of Premier League clubs have money, but they're just not a club that can afford a player of his talent, like a Winston Reid, walk for free. I've been hearing different kind of denominations as far as how much it would cost to get a Winston Reid. I've heard as low as £6 million, and I've heard as high as £10 million. That seems, more of like the 7 or 8 range. I think is more of what West Ham is probably willing to sell him off for, just because they'll get some type of money back for him that they can go into the summer or even the January window and buy another center half. But I think Winston Reid would be a good fit for Arsenal, just because he is athletic. He has that little bit of a physicality to him, which is something we have been lacking. He's good in the air as well. I like his defensive style. I think you put him next to a Koscielny, I think it'll be like almost like a brick wall back there, just because you would have more pace back there with a Winston Reid. He's on the same level, I think, as a Koscielny as far as pace goes. So you put 2 of those guys back there at the same time, it would be, it'd be a pretty decent partnership, I think, overall. Again, too, he's only 26 years old, to where Perrin was 29. I think he was going to turn 30 soon, but Winston Reid is only 26, so he has a lot of years left in him. He still has a good, 5, 6, possibly even 7 years, because the longevity of a center half, it exceeds a like an attacker or an attacking midfielder, to where their downside starts happening around 30, 31, to where a center half, they have a little bit of longevity because they're not running around all the time. They're not exhausting all their energy like an attacker does. So it's a very good possibility that he might be lined up. It would be a great signing, to be honest with you, in January. You look at Manchester City, like I mentioned with Wilfred Bonny, getting him in the January window. Sometimes when a player like that comes out in the January window and gets sold in the January window, sometimes those are rare. But again, money talks. Like I said in some of my other episodes, money talks, especially when it comes to January. Jabba the Hutt said in the summertime that Winston Reid was not for sale. He came out in, I believe, November and December and said he wasn't for sale. Now all of a sudden he's saying that there's no future for Winston Reid at West Ham. So let's go get him. He has Premier League experience as well. I mean, he's been in the Premier League for a while. West Ham fans think very highly of Winston Reid. I think he's in the best starting 11 in West Ham's history, which is crazy to think about that. That's how highly they think about him. That's how highly respected that Winston Reid is to West Ham fans. Again, if it only costs 6, 7, maybe even £8 million, I mean, again, that's 2 match days. If he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. But again, that's an extra body and Premier League experience, and all the attributes that I said earlier that he has. As far as any other center halves go, there hasn't been really that much other talk. I know Newcastle United supposedly is interested in getting Winston Reid as well, but again, that whole club is in disarray with Alan Pardew, leaving for Crystal Palace. That's a shit show up there. So I mean, as a player, unless they're going to offer him an insane amount of money, do you really want to go to a club like that is just unsure of themselves, to where you can come to a club like Arsenal and I don't really know what his pay is right now currently with West Ham, but if Arsenal's going to go after him, they're going to offer him at least a decent amount of money, at least more than he was making with West Ham. And of course, he'll have a chance at playing a Champions League, playing against Monaco in February and March. So there's a possibility of that. There's a possibility that he can come in right away and fill in because of just Mertesacker just has been uninspiring this year, to say the least. I mean, everybody knows his the frustration behind Mertesacker this season. So again, might be a good pickup. Hopefully they do something. Especially in this window, they need to do something, whether it's with the center half position or the DM position. They need to at least pick one of those and focus on that. Arsene Wenger came out too right before the transfer window and said, we don't have as much money as people think we do. That's just manager talk. That's transfer talk right there. Of course, sometimes with Arsenal fans, we're our own worst enemy. With the financial guys, with the financial Arsenal fans that really try to dig into the books and find out how much money we really do have. And of course, they release that on Twitter and Facebook and all that type of stuff. So teams know that we have money, that we have X amount of dollars to spend. And of course, when they know that, they're gonna raise the price on any player. But of course, with Winston Reid, given the fact that he is on a free this coming summer, we kind of hold the upper hand on that rather than West Ham does. Because West Ham's going to want to get something because they know already, because Winston Reid had a contract extension in place in the summertime, and he did not sign the contract. He didn't want it. He didn't want to sign the contract, and obviously I think they offered him one more contract in December, and he denied it again. And he's obviously out the door, so West Ham's going to want something from him. But that's about it. As far as anything else, Morgan Schneiderlin's came out and said he doesn't want to get transferred in this window, but he wants to get transferred in the summer window. I don't understand that. I don't get that. It just seems everything seems wrong with Morgan Schneiderlin as far as his personality, his character. As far as him being a player, he would be a perfect fit for Arsenal, but he just seems all wrong as far as he just doesn't seem to like he has like the confidence, in my opinion, to play for a big club. I think he might be a little bit too gun shy. I think to play for a big club like Arsenal. It just seems that way to me, because how can you say I want to? Maybe it's loyalty. I know he's been there at Southampton for since they've been in League One or possibly even League Two. I know they went through just about every single division of English football to get up to the Premier League. And I know Morgan Schneiderlin has been there with Southampton from the beginning, but at the same time, I get loyalty. Loyalty is a great thing, especially in this modern age. You just don't see enough of it. But to say that he's not going to leave until the summer if that's what happens, I just don't get that. I just don't. I don't understand it. From a player. I mean, he basically said that in the summertime too, that he wasn't going to leave Southampton. Everything about his personality and his character just seems like all wrong to me. That he just doesn't want to play for a big club. He just rather stay with the Southampton and be under the radar, being under the radar type of player. Who knows? Maybe he just doesn't feel he can take the pressure of a big club, but I just don't understand that. But obviously, if it goes into the summertime that we still don't have a world class DM, there's a lot more better DMs out there than Morgan Schneiderlin, or a world class DM. They're going to be out there. One name I would love for Arsenal to go after in the summertime is Javi Martinez from Bayern Munich. He's out this entire year with an ACL injury. Of course, blah blah blah. Yeah, he's injured, but that's a guy that Bayern Munich might be willing to let go, possibly. But Pep Guardiola obviously is the manager, and of course Javi Martinez is Spanish, so who knows if that's a possibility or not. But that's one dude I would love for Arsenal to go after, because he would just be, if you had like Winston Reid or even a world-class center half in the summertime, along with that world-class DM, they would solve all of our problems just in that one signing. That would allow the attackers to attack all the time and not have to worry about tracking back all the time. But as far as any type of other transfer news, of course, I think it's like day 7 or day 8 of the of the transfer window. But of course, Arsenal fans call it Saturday. That's always the joke. But we want to see some business being done. We want to see it being done quickly, because, like I said earlier, it's just one of my predictions is, if we don't see any type of action, we don't see any type of real business being done within the first week and a half. I just don't see Arsenal signing anybody. I think Arsenal's just going to make the same excuse. I think he's just going to make the excuse of we have players coming back. We have Hector Bellerin showing up that he can be a backup right back. Of course, then we'll have Callum Chambers as the backup center half, and it's just going to be a fucked up merry-go-round. Again, when I think it's February 2nd when the window slams shut, and it's just going to be another headache possibly if we don't see any business being done within the next, I would say, 3, 4, maybe in a week. If we don't see anything, or we don't hear any type of concrete news coming out, I just don't see Arsenal really doing anything, because it doesn't really make any sense to me, especially if they're going after Winston Reid. Why that transfer can't get done now, even within a week. It just wouldn't make any sense to me of why that transfer could not get done immediately. But that'll be it. Hopefully we'll get a good game. 3 points, obviously, against Stoke City on Sunday. We definitely need it. We need to start having that winning mentality back at Arsenal. Of course, seeing Mesut Ozil and Aaron Ramsey coming back as well is going to be great to see. And of course, next week is the big one against Manchester City. So a lot of good things happening for Arsenal finally, with injured players coming back, and hopefully we'll hear some transfer news coming up shortly, because we're going to definitely need an extra a body or two in defense, because I still don't see how we're going to make it throughout the rest of the season with playing in the Premier League, FA Cup, and Champions League. I don't see how we're going to make it with 6 defenders again. Maybe even you can throw Hector Bellerin's name in there as a 7th, but just don't see it. Don't see it happening. Especially with Koscielny, he's all he has to do is kind of like slightly tear that Achilles once again, and he's going to be done for the rest of the season pretty much. And of course, Mertesacker in his form, Callum Chambers, him being so young, of course is he's very promising, but again, being so young, being thrown into the Wolves, obviously he shouldn't be playing as many minutes as he already has this season. But again, we need that extra body back there. We need someone who's experienced, and of course, again, that name, in my opinion, is Winston Reid. He has all the experience that you possibly need. He can, obviously, he can fill in that space now and into the future, obviously. So, but again, well, let me see when we play West. Yeah, we don't play him till March, so that shouldn't even fucking matter. Of how long or how if they're waiting on to try to buy another defender or get someone on loan, but whatever. This has gone on too long already, and hopefully, yeah, on Sunday I'll do a match review of Stoke City. Hopefully we'll have some good news and have 3 points later.